A little review from where we left off. C is the speed of light. The actual number is 299,792,458 meters per second. We round it off to 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. When we're doing our distance formula or our wave formula, we're going to substitute C in place of the speed. And this is for the speed of light. It's also the speed of electromagnetic waves, and that's what our notes are today, electromagnetic spectrum. Electromagnetic spectrum, this is all the different types of electromagnetic waves in order from longest wavelength down to shortest wavelength. And on the picture here you can see the longest wavelengths are bigger than buildings, going down to the smallest wavelengths are smaller than a nucleus of an atom. All right, the first one is radio waves. Radio waves go from 3 kilometers long down to 30 centimeters. And obviously they're used for radios. AM radios go from 100 meters to 3,000 meters, and FM from 0.5 meters to 10 meters. Using our wave formula, we can substitute the speed of light here because radio waves also travel at the speed of light. And then we can use this formula to calculate what are the frequencies that go along with these. These are the frequencies when you're turning your radio station. These are the numbers you're turning it to. And down at the end of your dial, it tells you megahertz for FM or kilohertz for AM. TVs also use radio waves. Back in the 70s and 80s and the early part of the 90s, they had two different television bands. There was UHF and VHF. VHF is very high frequencies, and that's where you would have all your local TV stations. And UHF is your non-local stations, most of the ones that we get on cable nowadays. In the 90s or the late 90s, they started using less of these because more and more people were going over to cable. So they eventually got rid of all of those, and they sold all the UHF frequencies to the cell phone companies. And so now the cell phone companies use those radio waves in these frequency ranges for your cell phones. This is a breakdown of the different carriers and what different frequencies that they're using. Notice the numbers here, they're all in the 1,000 range. 2,000 megahertz is actually 2 gigahertz. So these are all in the gigahertz range. And it doesn't matter which one of these frequencies, they're all the same. They all travel at the speed of light, and it doesn't make any difference as far as the frequency goes between the different carriers. The problems we have with the carriers are, do they have enough cell towers where they can get a strong enough signal to you? Radio telescopes also use radio waves and other types of electromagnetic waves that they're searching from for outer space. When we're looking at a star, we see the starlight, we see the visible portion of that light, but stars and the sun give off other types of rays as well, and we can study them with the radio telescopes. And this is the largest radio telescope in the world. It's Arecibo telescope. It's in Puerto Rico, and they actually dug this out on a mountainside. Here's a car for scale. You can see how big it is from the picture here. This is a normal size satellite dish that the cable company would be using. These are extra large dishes that they use for the radio telescopes. And again, you can see here's a truck in the background for scale here. To make a larger scale telescope, they put all these radio telescopes in they call it an array. It's in a pattern that simulates a giant dish. So they are simulating a giant parabolic dish here by putting all the radio telescopes in an array like this. The idea is that the bigger your dish is, the more waves they can capture and the more focused your picture will be. Pause and copy. Next one is microwaves. Microwaves go from 1 millimeter to 30 centimeters. Most obvious use is your microwave oven. What they've done is found the right frequency that causes water and fat molecules to vibrate, and that's what heats up your food. Right? And the way it works, they make a standing wave inside of the microwave. It looks something like this. When the first microwaves came out in the late 1970s, what we would notice is that there's portions of your food that would get very hot, and there was portions of the food that wouldn't heat up at all. And finally, they got smart and they put a rotating tray on there, so as your food rotates around, it rotates through an antinode and a node, so everything, all of your food gets cooked evenly. And there's a way you can actually measure this microwave distance. If you take a chocolate bar and put it inside your microwave, you take out the rotating tray so the chocolate bar sits still and you cook it, and you're going to find it will start to melt in this distance between the antinodes, and you can measure that distance. It should be somewhere around 10 centimeters. The satellite dishes use microwaves, not radio waves. Radar for the police when they're catching you speeding, they're also using microwaves and the Doppler effect. What they're doing is sending out a microwave pulse to your car, it bounces off the car and comes back, and because your car is moving, it bounces back faster, making these wavelengths closer together. And then they can use the Doppler effect formula. They're going to use the speed of light here because microwaves travel at the speed of light, and they'll check the change in frequency, and then they can calculate what the speed. They also have to have it calibrated with the police car's speed, and then they can calculate your speed. Doppler radar works the same way for the news. They have a satellite here. They bounce down a microwave. It bounces off the clouds in all directions, and then some of it comes back. And this wave is changed if the cloud is moving. And again, they can use the Doppler effect here to figure out which direction and how the clouds are moving. This is a picture somebody needs to ask me about. I have stories to tell it, but I don't have time right here. Pause and copy. Infrared rays are next. Infrared goes from 0.7 micrometers down to 1 millimeter. We use infrared for remote controls. Now these are invisible rays, so we cannot see them. There's a certain frequency of infrared rays that we can feel as heat if they're quite intense. These are heat pictures that come from the infrared rays given off by an object. We'll learn later on that all objects give off radiation. Most of us give off radiation in the infrared range. And they use colors here to represent where's the warmest colors and where's the coolest colors. So you can see what parts of your body are giving off the most heat and what parts of your body are staying cold. Usually your fingers and toes are always the coldest. They can also take pictures of your house to see where you're losing heat from in your house and where do you need to put insulation in. We also use infrared rays for night vision. In a normal camera, we have light rays that are bouncing off the person back to the camera. So for the night vision equipment, instead of shining light, visible light on the person, they just look at infrared being given off by warm bodies. In this case, it's just the warmth of this person is giving off the infrared rays so you can see them, and that's why you can't see the bag and you can't see the background because the background's not giving off any heat. There's some animals that can actually see the infrared rays. I didn't put the right picture here, but snakes can see in pitch black because they can see the heat given off by animals such as mice. Animals like cats and foxes just have good night vision, but they can't actually see the infrared. Snakes can. Pause and copy. Visible light is next, so these are the rays that we can see. These are numbers, these two numbers you have to have memorized. We can see from 700 nanometers to 400 nanometers. 700 is red and 400 is violet. And everywhere in between those is one of the colors of our visible light spectrum. Right? Visible light is just the colors of the rainbow. When you see all the colors of the rainbow mixed together, your eyes can't separate them, and we see white. That's what white is. It's a combination of all the colors. Colors in order: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. We used the front letters of each of those and used the name Roy G. Biv to remember the colors in order. You need to know these colors in order. We need to know that red is 700 and violet is 400. Lasers use visible light. For a CD and a DVD, we have a red laser that is shining on there, reading your information off of your disk. The lasers that we use are around 650 nanometers. For the Blu-rays, they are using blue lasers, and the blue lasers have a smaller wavelength. And the advantage to the smaller wavelength means that these lines on your disc can be closer together, and we can fit more lines on the disc, so you can fit a lot more information on a Blu-ray disc than you can on a regular DVD. Photosynthesis. Plants use visible light to make their energy for photosynthesis. Since the plant leaves are green, that means they're reflecting the green light. So the light that they're absorbing to use for photosynthesis would be the red, the yellow, the orange, the colors that are not green. Sunrise and sunsets have a orange-red color because these other colors, violet, blue, and green, are scattered in our atmosphere. And again, all of these things that we can see are visible light. All right, pause and copy.